How many note-taking apps do we need?
I don't know. They just follow me everywhere, to be honest. Yeah.
Oh, th this is gonna be good because I'm kind of hyped up. Listen, I have my own bias here. So the reason we're doing this is obviously that debate you did with John. Now, I
Yeah.
don't know John, but I know his takes, right? And I know
Yeah.
he's very ideologic, and I get it. I understand all of that. Um, so I want to cover that. I had ChatGPT score the debate and the transcript, so I know who won. We'll get into that in the end, right? But listen, before we start, just wanted to kind of see from your end, um, not how's the market, but how are the war stories, man? I'm gonna share a cute story with you in terms of what people are doing out of desperation now. I want to see if you've heard of something like this. I wouldn't be surprised if you have. So I'm currently looking to buy something detached, residential, converted into multiple units, the whole shebang, right? Looking at a number of properties. Found one. So main house, basement apartment, coach house.
Yeah.
Power of sale. Okay. So I called the agent, and this is all allegedly, right? I don't know if this is the reality, but 99% sure this is what happened. And this is where it gets cute. So these people knew they were going to default on their mortgage, and months in advance before defaulting to the lender, they moved out of the house. They brought in a relative or a friend.
Okay.
They put them in there. This entire property need grosses roughly 55 to 6 grand, 5,500 to $6,000 a month in rent. They did a 5-year fixed term lease for $1,900
Okay.
and moved out, and then they put this tenant in there. And now it's power of sale, the lender's taken over, and now you call and it's like, hey man, I want to buy the house. Oh, you got to assume the tenant fixed year term lease until 2029 or something. So I'm
That's
like, okay,
crazy.
that's cute. That's cute. That's very creative.
Smart.
Like now the house is gonna sit. But I'm just thinking to myself, unless you've accepted you're declaring bankruptcy or you're leaving the country for good, you literally nuked your chance of doing anything ever again, right? Because they're just going to accrue losses, damages, and all this stuff while this thing doesn't sell. Have you seen anything like this before?
No, I haven't. Not like that specifically. I've seen worse stuff, like, and we can talk about some of the stuff in the recording, but yeah, like I had one like just up the road from here. I was gonna list power of sale, and then I found out like last second that there was a second mortgage. We were gonna list it power of sale for the first, and I we served them and got the writ of possession and everything. And because the writ of possession was sent out to the lender in second was like, I have to foreclose on this because we were gonna take it. Okay, so lender in first was owed like 1 million. Property's worth like maybe 1.3, so they would have been made whole. But there's a guy in second up to 2.2.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
So guy in second is gonna have to pay out the first and take and foreclose, and then sue for damages because otherwise he's getting wiped out.
Wow.
And
Okay,
that's a
that's
developer actually who owns that site. You'd know who it is.
okay. Okay, that's well, because yeah, that
Talk
second
about it another
position is
time.
wild. That's a
Yeah.
wild amount of money.
That's not the worst I've seen.
Okay, well, let's talk about the worst you've seen. Listen, before we started, I'm going to share my screen. I was wondering how I'm going to introduce you, right? So, Jordan is like the Alex Hormozy of real estate marketing. And then for you,
Yeah.
I'm like, what are we going to call you, right? I always kind of thought of you as like the Oracle, not of Omaha, but Oracle of
Keswick.
I don't want, yeah, I was gonna say Keswick, but that's just downplaying it for fun of like GTA real estate. But then when I watched that video with the Pasalis and I saw some of the comments, I was actually dying. So we have two good ones for you. One is you're the Giga Chad of residential real estate.
Yeah, I love that.
Personally, I really like
I
that
made
one.
that my Twitter headline.
Yeah, so that's good. And then the other one was I think you're an investor lobbyist, which I think that one has a ring to it because it's like well, we can trigger some people here. But anyway,
For
let me
sure,
just
let's do it.
quickly. I want to just share my. Let me see how I'm going to do this, man. Hold on. But Dan is literally the Wall Street Giga Chad meme, but for residential real estate. So that's pretty good.
I like that.
Okay. So this is the comment that got me going. So I went through the video and then I went through the comments, and Dan is the equivalent of a lobbyist for investors. That's how he makes his money. He won't argue to change that. His analysis is good within the current system, but he only has selfish economic lens, not a quality of life and country growth lens. John wants the system to change to benefit all Canadians, not just those that can or want to be investors. And then blah blah blah. Landlords make all the money, but you get taxed out of existence on work income. So this comment, at first I was like, okay. Not the nicest comment, but this person, aside from the personal attacks, is actually correct on a bunch of this stuff.
For sure.
Like I think this last one. So in Canada, you make so much money becoming a landlord and speculating on real estate, but you get taxed out of existence on work income. And realistically, man, I think the people that get knocked the most, like literally are carrying the burden of everybody in Canada. If you're making 150 plus on a T4 income, you're basically screwed. There's no tax deduction, there's nothing. You just have this income. The banks will lend you everything, whatever you want, but you're paying 50% in tax. But this one got you riled up, man. So, what's your take? How selfish are you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I actually like, I don't talk that much about it, but like I make a very conscious effort to not be a selfish person. I spent a good portion of my life as a selfish person. I don't really mention this as part of like my online persona, but I'm in recovery and have been for 6 years, and a core tenet of that is not being a selfish person. So, I don't really think I'm selfish. I actually think I'm pretty far away from it, but I understand where this person is coming from and such that they think that my perspective is aligned towards selfishness because the individual interprets the landlord-tenant relationship as the landlord being the only person who gets something, and that the landlord doesn't provide any service. But the reality is, given the the part that they mentioned is good. It's a good analysis within the current system. I can't change the current system, right? Like the goal here is to focus on things that we can change, and not things that we can't. I didn't create this system. I'm just as much of a victim of it as other people, and so within the existing system, I believe that a landlord provides housing for people who can't otherwise afford to own housing. Because if they could afford to own housing, then they would, right? Um, and the landlord takes a significant capital risk to do that. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, even this comment, you make so much money becoming a landlord and speculating on real estate." Uh, I don't know if that would be true in the last 5 years, right? Like you really have to back test that. And the reality is you can make a decent amount of money becoming a landlord and speculating on real estate, but you can make a decent amount of money working your job and speculating on shit coins and all of these other different things. It doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It's just one place for capital to flow. And just because the landlord exists doesn't take away that opportunity from the tenants. It gives
Yeah,
the opportunity for like I rented for a long time because I could earn a better return. I didn't have a young family and I didn't need the stability of tenure, and I could earn a better return on my capital by investing the differential between my cost of owning and renting and investing the down payment in in other things, actually in real estate. But I can't do that anymore because I have kids and I have an expensive life, and it's hard for me to save money. It's hard for me to capture that differential. If I was renting, I probably would just be spending all that money on other dumb stuff. And so a home actually serves a really good value for me, which is that forces me to save money and it forces me to put that money into a hard asset. And that's why real estate is valuable to Canadians, because most Canadians suck at saving and most Canadians suck at investing, just like me.
yeah. No, listen, man, and listen, I don't want to put you on the spot if you're having to defend yourself. Here's what I'll say about this comment, right? Because the part where it says selfish, that's the part that kind of, you know, I didn't like because I've known you for years now, and I know how good you've been generous with your time, resources, connections, and everything, at least with me. And I know you've done the same thing for other people. So definitely this is not true. But here's the thing, in the context of this comment
To be
where
fair, the person didn't actually call me selfish. They said I have a selfish economic lens.
okay, and that's fair, and that's fair. That's why I thought like, okay, because the one thing he did say that really hit home for me is that he said, and this is absolutely true, is that his analysis is good within the current system, and that is exactly what you're doing. And this is where I think the perception and reality kind of gets mixed up because you're reporting on facts, not your feelings, whereas the person you are debating with is going off of ideology and good feel stuff for the masses. So you're already set up in a way to be the bad guy, right? You're going to be the villain. So in the context of that, this comment does make sense. But yeah, the selfish thing is like, yeah, it is what it is. But anyway, um, this person is not wrong in some of what they said. So that's fine. So let's move on to some of the other ones. So this is the new one. This one I also enjoyed because This person doesn't know much about you or me for that matter, but we'll get that. So may all your projects pencil, all your labor be cheap, and may you take credit for building stuff when you've never had the pleasure of lifting a 5 gallon bucket of wet concrete. I've built homes, yada yada sob story. Okay, cool. So this is where you and I, the reason we are very much alike or we get along is okay. Sorry to backtrack. Back in the day when I was a T4 guy, and I was in real estate, but it was like a side hustle. There was an Italian guy I used to work with, and he used to build custom homes, basically one every 2 years. He did that for years while he was a sales guy at a big company. And we got talking about the whole life, and he's like, I love building stuff and all this stuff. He referred to himself as, and this is going to sound vulgar, but he referred to himself as a sewer rat. Okay. But meanwhile, every single day he's wearing the suit, he's got the nice tie and everything, but he basically lived out of it was a GMC 1500 single cab, 8 foot box. Thing was running to the ground, rear wheel drive. You
Great
know
truck.
that pure contractor truck, right? Like this thing hustles. And this is where people just don't know, right? Because they're seeing you on Bloomberg, they're seeing you on Twitter, they're seeing you on all this stuff, but they don't know about the 5 ton, the 5 ton dump trailer, the skid
Right.
steer, and all that stuff. This is where you and I, like, we live for that stuff. Like,
Yeah,
we
these
can
guys
hustle
don't know
it,
that I
yeah,
that I drove a LB7 diesel until like 2 years ago. Like that
with
was
spare doors in the
rusted
back.
out. With
Yeah,
what?
with the spare doors and tailgates in the back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
just think. So I think this comment is it's just it's I can understand, like, again, I want to empathize with these people because I understand where they're coming from. They're seeing a bunch of guys on YouTube, they don't know anything about them, and they're like, okay, these guys are like sitting around talking, but yeah, man, like we've
Well,
built
the
stuff.
reality
I
is
know
like, I mean, you just shouldn't make assumptions. Like, I'm not going to make any assumptions about this individual, but they also shouldn't. I would hope that they would give me the same benefit of the doubt. And this is the problem with internet culture, right? It's like you take the risk of presenting some portion of your being to people online, and they make assumptions about your character based on the inputs that you've given them, and then they form a opinion about you based on that. And so, like I can understand based on the limited worldview that this individual has of me that that's the way that they feel, but it's just very far from reality. Like I literally, I don't know if you're going to put it in the video or not, but like I was literally building a deck with my son this morning, like, and I'm regularly fixing things at the rental properties that I own, and I'm, like constantly moving appliances in and out, installing them, and that includes plumbing, electrical, etc. Like there, it's just not what this person wants to think it is.
yeah, well, two
But they
things on
obviously
that.
have an axe to grind with capital. Like this is labor who hates capital, and they see me as capital, not labor.
Yeah. Well, two things. So I was trying to find, you sent me a picture a while back. You had a backhoe and you were, I don't know what you were digging, man. Some sort of plumbing, or you're trying to pull out the main drain to the street. I don't know. It was years ago. I couldn't find the picture. I was gonna put it up here. If I find it, I still might insert it into the video. But
I think it was my septic, to be honest. I think I
maybe,
was
yeah,
redoing a
maybe.
septic at one of my properties. Yeah.
Well, while you were allowed, you're no longer allowed as of 2025, right? They changed the rules. You
Yeah.
can't do septics yourself anymore. So, by the way, Ontario was, I think, the only place where you could. The rest of the country didn't allow it for good reason. But to the credit of this person, though, it is true, and I didn't include your comment because I don't think you need to justify yourself on here, but it's so true because a lot of times the capital comes with a Range Rover. It's like, oh, look at what I built. Meanwhile, they just provided the
Right.
capital and then they take credit for it. But you said it well in your response to this person. Ultimately, that's just how things work, and I can understand why they're disgruntled because they're the ones that built it, but they don't get any credit for it, which is true.
Well, I mean, they can get credit for it if they put their contractor sign on the ho construction hoarding the entire time that it's being built. Like, if you're like, I don't know who this individual is, but if you're like one of 1,000 slab work employees on a high-rise project, like, yeah, you're not going to get credit. But if you're a guy on my site that's, a small crew, like the last crew I hired was 3 guys, right? Um, and they can put their signage on my construction hoarding and get more credit than me. I don't want to be, I actually don't take credit for anything. I actually prefer to be very discreet about the things that I own, and I don't want anybody in my business. So not really sure where the credit part comes in either, right? Like there are some people who like to publicize all of the things that they've done and blah blah blah, but like that's not me, right? Like I a lot of people even in regards to our podcast are always like, oh, you never talk about what you own. Like, how can we even trust you? I'm like, do you want me to say my door count and AUM in my Instagram profile like a douche? Like, because that's not my vibe, right? So that's the other part that kind of fascinates me. Like, yeah, it's just funny, but the individual like semi apologized after that. Sorry, I'm a bit salty about a group of well-capitalized men meeting on how they can further financialize places to live. But the interesting part about the event that we're putting together is a lot of the people who attend it are in the construction profession. Like we have a big construction manager and several trades who are at the event, like as speakers and sponsors and vendors. So just ironic, right? I think that it's just the world that
Yeah.
we live in, man. I think that this is like, I'll leave it with this. Like, Canada's really struggling with like accountability right now. Like, people are upset about the circumstances that we have right now, and they want somebody to blame. And it could be me, it could be, Mark Carney, it could be Justin Trudeau, it could be the government, it could be the central bank, but whatever. But it kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning. And again, I don't know if it's going to make it in the episode or not, but like I've in the last 6 years, I've lived a life of recovery, and there's very strict rules about what I can and can't do. And that for me is that I have to accept that all of my problems are my own making, and other other people, I've just found in society that that's a very, very rare thing.
Yeah, man. It's, that's I subscribe to this theory, not even a theory, this way of life. I don't know if it's because it's immigrant mindset or what it is, but for me it's always been like that. And I can see it like people generally, I don't
Well,
want to
yeah.
say can everybody's looking for somebody to blame. And that's what I felt this debate was with investors and scapegoating and stuff. It's like blame everything, whoever you want. Nothing's going to change for you
Well,
unless you
that's
do
why I said
something
it's
about
like
it.
I'm not saying that investors aren't to blame. I'm just saying that they aren't entirely to blame. Where I think a lot of folks who feel like they've been marginalized out of homeownership feel that way. I won't even mention like in the context of my debate with John because he's not here, and we're gonna have another a follow up in that regard. But mathematically, as I mentioned in that debate, first time homebuyers are 50% of the demand pool. And so if you're just going to use the math, like there's nothing that says that investors have a greater ability or some outsized ability to push house prices up. It's actually the opposite. First time homebuyers have the highest loan to value mortgages, the lowest interest rates, and so the most buying power relative to their income. And so actually they are half of the buying pool, and they have the most powerful impact relative to their circumstance to push house prices up. And that's setting aside the qualitative impact that first time home buyers are also inexperienced and they're far more emotional. And so I'm not saying that it's all first time home buyers' fault. I'm saying that and I'm not saying it's all investors' fault. I'm saying that we have all contributed to this problem together, and we need to take our responsibility for our part in it.
Yeah, no, I agree. 100% agree. Okay, so let's see. Here's another one I saw. I would bet the latter half of this debate, it turned more into a two versus one. Dan handled it well. I feel both sides articulated good points, and there was merit in both arguments that make me think that neither side is incorrect, but that the subject is very nuanced. And ultimately, this is what we've been talking about, and I think this is true. I think you personally, from observing you, knowing you, you always try to you get into the nuance, which is what I appreciate because I know this is not cut and dry. And with John's side, I understand him as well, but things are simplified to the point where it's not that it sounds better, but it's easier to relate to versus listening to nuance and trying to make sense of the more complex things at play. Like just like you said, I agree with you. First-time home buyers, inexperienced, buying on emotion, are more likely to objectively drive prices up than an investor that's looking at a cap rate or a rental yield. That is going to be true all the time. Me as an investor, I'm not emotionally attached to a property. I don't care. I'm looking at 10 properties. I have all of them in an Excel spreadsheet and I'm looking at rental yield and I'm going down the list of what I'm going to offer on each one where it makes sense. Whereas, first time home buyer, completely different story.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think that, it kind of goes back to like what we were saying before. It is super nuanced, right? And I mean, I think that in that debate, the person who is siding with, like I took the underdog position. Like we go back to that stat that I presented, which it comes from the Bank of Canada. 50% of the buyers are first-time home buyers, and 26% of them are second home buyers, which is people who are selling their first-time home and buying their second home or whatever, but selling their second, buying their third. And so 75% of the market is the people who would side with the argument that John is making. So I'm obviously taking a very difficult position in siding with the investors. But the reality is that it's not to say that I think that we should continue the system that we have, or that I think that it's a good system, but it's the system that we have been dealt with or dealt. It's a hand that we've been dealt. We are heading on a path. If you look at from a policy perspective, who does Canada want to be like? Who are we behaving like? Where's Carney, rubbing shoulders? It's not with China and Russia, who have 99% home ownership rates and socialist ownership structures. It's Europe, who has 50% home ownership rates, which is lower than Canada, and high institutional ownership and social housing programs. And so, and from a policy perspective, red or blue, for the last several decades, Canada has been trending in that direction. Um, and so I think it's reasonable to expect that we will continue to do that, and that we are um, moving towards falling home ownership and an increase in rentership. And so my thought around this is, can we see the good in that? And can we make an investment thesis out of it? And that's why I argue the way that I do in that regard.
Yeah. No, not makes sense. This is a comment from, I think, a comrade of mine. Obviously, I don't know this person, but judging by their name, probably
Yeah.
from the same part of the world. And I think this person put it well. So it seems that John's position is rooted in more socialist notions of fairness. It is hard to argue for it rationally, and that is why he had to resort to emotional rants. Good example would be builder versus investor. In terms of actual economy, there's no difference between building a fourplex and just buying one, because the guy who made the conversion was doing it to make money and sell, and now he's unable to build another one. Praising one and hating the other is pure vibe thing. So this one, like this is kind of the last sentence. Praising one and hating the other is pure vibe thing, and this is very true, I think.
Yeah. Well, I would agree, because I think I responded to that one just basically saying, like, um, the person who buys the fourplex and takes possession of it still has to risk their capital to do that. And I think, like, I know John has like beef, especially with single people who buy single family homes and rent them. But my problem with that, and like when you talk about the first line in that comment, which is the socialist idea of fairness, is who are we to say that investors can't buy first time home, or sorry, single family homes and rent them out? Because as soon as you do that, now all of a sudden you're limiting your rental pool. You're basically saying investors can no longer own single family homes. And it's like, okay, well, sorry, tenants, you're screwed. You can't live in a detached house. So if I'm a tenant, if I'm somebody who made the lifestyle choice, setting aside people who are forced to, and I know it's easy for people to resort to that argument, oh, they didn't want to be tenants. It's like, okay, that's fine. Um, but can if you're getting rid of the people who are going to provide single family houses for rent, then you're also getting rid of the supply of single family houses for rent, which is also unfair for the 40 something percent of people who rent houses and want a backyard and a driveway and don't want to live in an apartment, right?
Yeah.
Like, if the system's designed to push people into being tenants, shouldn't we at least make sure that there's good houses for tenants?
Yeah. Yeah. True. This is the last comment, and this is kind of ties it all together, because whether you're John, me, you, whoever, I think we all agree. I want to have a home where I can raise my family, a safe place and shelter for my children, and always turn to in times of need. I just can't do that in a rental unit. I mean, the last part, I don't know. Look, I have relatives in Europe, and here's a fun fact for anybody that doesn't know how the rental system works in Europe. But let's say you're in Finland or Germany or places like that. Like when you rent a place, I don't know if you knew this, you bring your own kitchen and flooring. So let's
Yeah.
say you you rent a place, you got to take the kitchen with you. So when you go to a place, there's no kitchen, there's nothing, no floor. You got to like not just furnish the place, so just random stuff like that. So to me, that is a crazy extreme. I don't know. I mean, I see where you're what you're saying, that we're headed that way. Um,
Yeah.
but it's very, I personally agree that it's very difficult to calmly and to feel the safety in a rental unit, knowing that you're renting. Okay, if it's a purpose-built rental, single family home, and you can live there for the next 10, 20 years, fine, that's one thing, but that doesn't really exist.
But that's what I'm arguing for. Like, and that's what that was my point in the debate is that we have a very broken system of landlord and tenant right now where because of the way that we've been structuring our capital raising for projects, you basically aggregate a bunch of absentee landlords, right? Through pre-construction sales in whether it's ground-based or high rise, you take deposits from them and that becomes your equity. That's your fundraise, right? Because you can't raise equity through traditional means like crowdfunding in Canada for these types of projects. And so now you have a bunch of foreign investors who never plan on seeing the unit, didn't show up for their PDI, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You have people, all of the units are owned individually. So those landlords now can send you an 11, 12, 13 exemption for own use, right? In at
Yeah.
least in the province of Ontario. They're very similar to first time home buyers where they're probably their first time investors, so they aren't experienced, they don't care about the unit, they're probably doing it for capital appreciation. So I agree where with that what that person is saying. They want to have a home and they want security of tenure, right? And they can't do that in a rental unit. But that's why I believe that we need large scale institutional landlords to be doing this job. We don't need foreign absentee investors doing this job. And the sooner that we make that shift where we can build and deliver, either ground-based subdivisions, so like single family detached or townhouse subdivisions in the rental tenure, so that tenants can have a large institutional landlord who can't evict them for their own use or because their cousins, brothers, whatever wants to move in or because they're doing a renoviction, then we have a much better rental system. But we broke the rental system, and it's all a function of the way that our capital markets work. Um, like even if I'm a pension fund who owns a subdivision of 200 homes, I still can't rent evict you because it's a block of 200 homes. If I rent evict you, I have to move you to another unit in the same subdivision, an identical or comparable unit in the same subdivision, and then I have to give you the rent evicted unit back afterwards. Yeah, sure, that's annoying in the security of tenure piece that you have to move twice. But because it's a large corporate landlord, you could reasonably resist that that's
Okay. Okay. So couple of insights I pulled from that video. So, and this is the one I've been kind of yelling from the rooftops for a long time. This I'm pretty sure it came from you. So investors have absorbed losses and are in effect subsidizing affordable rentals. So this is basically an argument you're making that investors who bought pre-cons are now cash flow negative, providing below market rent units unintentionally. And for the longest time, I feel like not that this is to excuse anything that John is saying, but investors have truly, through rent control and the way the landlord-tenant board is, which is, I think, intentionally made to be, you know, in perpetual delay.
yeah,
Ultimately, we're providing Toronto subsidized housing. Ultimately, that's what we're doing
yeah, I think so.
by a broken LTV.
And I'm not saying that to give investors a pat on the back. I'm just saying it because like people are saying that there's this huge surplus value that investors are capturing, but by a large margin, that's actually not true. And especially the investors that we're demonizing, which are the ones who have purchased in the last 5 years, if anything, they're actually trading at a negative surplus value. So they're actually their monthly burn rate on that unit is actually higher than the rent that they're collecting, which means that they're absorbing a sunk cost to get that principal pay down. So maybe the mortgage is paying down $600 a month, and they're actually burning $500 a month in interest, and so they're only getting $100 in like surplus value of principal pay down, and they're taking a huge cost risk to do that. So they're basically getting support in their savings vehicle of an investment, but they're also risking, whatever $200,000 down payment to do that. Um, and so yeah, that would be a good example. I think if you're looking at like a lot of these pre-con condos, which were purely a speculative play, like I don't call people who bought pre-con condos an investor. I call that a speculator because they were literally just buying an options contract. So I would set that aside. But if we're just going to talk about them, number one, they got a lot of housing created, but number two, anyone who chooses to close on those units, they're so far cash flow negative that they're actually losing, they're paying out of pocket for principal every month. Like your average cash flow negative on a condo is about $600 per month. and 80% of condos that are closing in this year are cash flow negative, and that's from research from Ben Tal at CIBC. So I would say it's probably pretty bang on. And so if you're $600 cash flow negative on a normal mortgage on like a $600,000 property, let's say $600,000, $700,000 condo in the GTA, you're paying less principal than $600 a month. So you're actually losing money. You're losing $200-300 a month for that person to be able to have a rental below the cost of ownership and without having to risk their own capital in the form of a down payment to be able to occupy that unit. I'm not trying to say that they're providing some like social service. I'm just saying that functionally, the argument that they're rent seeking or taking away from the economy is mathematically incorrect. They're actually giving to the economy. They're taking out of their own pocket to reduce the cost of occupancy of that unit.
I gotta say, people closing on pre-cons right now or in the last 2 years, they're true patriots. Because I don't know how else to put it. I mean,
Yeah.
if they were cash flow negative, those guys just $600, they would be ecstatic. I mean, not I think, I just know a handful of cases. People right now, it's totally normal that you're cash flow negative $2,000 a month on a pre-con that you bought for 760 that's currently renting at 2,300 bucks a month. Like it's
Do you see the
gnarly.
chart I put out on like where I mapped out the losses?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, I mean, basically anything that's below this 0% line is a property that's closing at a loss. So we're in 2025. So in 2024, about 50% of projects or 60% of projects closed at a loss. In 2025, you've got about 70%.
And is
2026.
this GTA or is it high rise single family? Is it all everything all in?
This is high rise or apartment style, not just high rise, I guess mid rise as well, and Greater Golden Horseshoe. So it includes projects in like Hamilton,
Oh, okay. Because
416 and 905. Yeah.
I'm surprised you still have so many that are actually not negative.
Well,
I
I
would
mean
have
that's last year, right? So like a lot of your 24 projects pre-sold
oh
in like
19s.
18, 19,
Okay. Yeah, yeah, got it.
right?
Okay, yeah,
So
I'm
like
thinking
you're
25. Yeah, 25 looks about right to me. Yeah, yeah, okay.
and then the redness is how severely negative they are, and the size of the circle is the number of units.
Wow.
So 2027, you've got all but one, and I think that one single project in 2027 that's green is actually a bad data point. I have to go back and check it, but
Yeah.
um, your entire pipeline is basically cash flow negative for the next 3 years, or sorry, equity negative, and they're probably cash flow negative as well, given rents are falling and all these other things, but
Yeah.
um, they're equity negative.
Okay. That's helpful. So, oof, oof. Okay, one of the other, and I don't remember if this was you or John. So this is another kind of good, insightful comment. Canada's real problem is an over-reliance on housing as the main wealth building tool. The argument is that Canadians aren't encouraged or equipped to build wealth outside of real estate, leading to economic imbalance. So I guess I'm just going to break it down, just financial literacy in Canada 101, just coming from me. This is just my own take. I've always felt that if you're a T4 person, the first thing you have to do is you have to have a primary residence, ideally something detached, because the government will reward you via no capital gains on your primary residence. So that's number one. That's a very effective tax vehicle. You know they're going to prop it up. You're going to get money, you're for savings, and it's not taxed. The next thing you do is you max out TFSAs and RRSPs. And if you've done all of these, then you can start looking at second properties and investment properties and all that stuff. Now, the the interesting thing here, and something I'm noticing right now, is the transfer of wealth from boomers has already started. So I don't know if you're seeing it, but even before people pass, they're starting to give out. Here's a couple of hundred for you. Here's a couple of hundred for you, because they want to liquidate the money. Why wait until we pass away? Let's give it to the kids. And the kids take this money and they're scared. They don't want, they're not going to buy a 911 or an exotic car because they're scared. The parents are alive. They don't want to just piss the money away, all this stuff. So I'm noticing this trend that right back to real estate because that is the safe thing to do based on historic performance. And we saw that with the pre-construction market for 20 years. We minted more millionaires from pre-construction from 2000 to 2020, literally countless of examples of people who made millions. Like I think
Yeah.
more Range Rovers and Porsches are paid for through capital gains in real estate and in the GTA than anything else. I think all the nice cars I'm always looking at cars, but that's how it's financed. Now that's done. Pre-construction no longer works. People are learning the lesson the hard way. But now I'm still seeing resales obviously holding up well. And I'm noticing that people are starting to put money back, even if the numbers don't make sense because it's store of value, right? Like, what do you do?
Mhm.
Bitcoin, where none of us really understand. I mean, I don't understand. I have it, but I don't understand it. But it's like, here, let's put some money there. But real estate is always that safe place. So it's the point was Canadians aren't encouraged or equipped to build wealth outside of real estate. And I kind
Yeah.
of agree. So
Yeah, I think both John and I agree on that system. But the thing is that I think we're both arguing for a version of reality that that goes against that, right? Like John is arguing that first-time homebuyers should have greater access to real estate as a wealth building tool through, it should lower barrier to entry so they can afford to buy, and then they can afford to use the savings vehicle. And now they're, one of within the 70% of people who consider their home an investment. And I'm arguing that we need greater ability to create institutional grade uh, real estate investments. And so I think both of us, it's funny because both of us agree that Canada needs a more diverse economy, and that people should, both people and institutions should be actually more interested in allocating their capital outside of real estate if we are going to grow the economy. But at the same time, we're both arguing for a version of, or our version of the antithesis of that. So it's actually kind of funny now that you pointed out.
So there's a lot that, I went back and forth through the transcript. And again, I think that first of all, kudos to you for going on because it was 2-on-1, but they're good hosts and it
Yeah,
was
they're great
in
people. I
it
mean,
was in
like
good
it's,
faith. Yeah,
oh
it was
yeah,
in good
like
faith.
it's all
So,
good. Yeah,
and I
John
also
and I definitely we amplify it a little bit on
you got to get the clicks. You got to get the
for sure.
clicks.
Yeah,
But
but
John, so the one thing I'll say with John is again because I don't know him personally, but I understand what he stands for, and I almost always think it's so much easier to just go his route, stand for all that stuff, but operate in a completely different environment because you're the guy that's operating in reality, but you could virtue signal. And I'm not saying he's virtue signaling, but that's kind of like, well, we all want the best for everybody, but here's the reality. So I'd rather just focus on the reality rather than, make believe things that will likely never happen. So I guess that's where I'm going to leave it. So here's let's get to the punchline here because ChatGPT had some thoughts on this. All right, so ChatGPT being the cheerleader hype man for all of us, it's going to take our jobs and stuff. Probably not going to age well in 2 years. But anyway,
that's
so
that's why that's why I got the AI real estate brokerage going, man. I mean,
well, we're
there's
going to talk
no
about that in a second. Yeah, we're going to talk.
yeah
I want to find out more about it. So
yeah.
okay, ChatGPT, John one on clarity and values, Dan one on depth and complexity. If you're aiming for public persuasion, John had the stronger, simpler message. If you're aiming for policy or investor circles, Dan brought more valuable insight and foresight. And I think that's pretty well summarized. That is the reality. So I would say to the regular person watching on YouTube, John obviously made a more compelling. I don't know if it was a debate.
Well,
His
he's
message
appealing to
resonates.
75 he's appealing to 75% of the audience. Like
There you go.
that's it.
Exactly.
That's it. Like I presented the stats. It was my opening argument was that, 75% of buyers are end users and only 25% are investors. But so I'm literally supporting the argument that only 25% of people you know are personally in tune with.
So here's what I'm wondering. Do you think your more nuanced take gets lost in public debate, or because people crave
Yes,
a villain
100%. Yeah, 100%.
and they
Most people
want a
can't look
simpler
past the fact
solution?
that people come into things with a bias, right? So they automatically like you have such an uphill battle to convince people that you're right when they've already decided that you're wrong before you've even opened your mouth. Like as soon as you present what you're trying to defend, I'm very used to this because I do it all the time, but the reality is of course, it's gonna get lost because people don't even want to listen to the nuance because they've already made up their mind on the decision. I mean, like I've spent like the better part of my adult life researching this stuff, and I've been working on a book about how
A
home
book.
ownership is yeah,
Let's
well, how home
go.
ownership is like well, I actually think that our obsession with home ownership has actually sacrificed our ability to create real wealth and growth as a society because people Um, People have this. I actually think it's biological, and I've been talking to a lot of like um, people in human sciences and biology and psychology about this and doing surveys and stuff like that. It's like part of my. I don't know if you know that I'm doing my master's of science in economics, but
I love
that's
it.
like so that's kind of where all of this is coming from. But the reality is,
Professor Foch, I love it. Now this is
yeah,
good.
yeah. But the reality is, I think that all mammals have their habitats, right? Their shelters. Like the you can't. There's like this video I came across on social media of this beaver who had never been in the wild, and it started gathering um, items from around the house and piling them in this hallway to create a dam, right? And
Oh, yeah.
right, and it would have no reason to know why it did that, but I mean, humans survived by having our own houses, right? So that other people we didn't share them with other people, and they could kill us in our sleep or whatever. And so I think that there's a deep biological need for people to want to own their house. But the reality is, if we live in a society that's evolved a lot from that, and right now our the way that we can win is by playing the game that we actually that everybody else is playing, which is accumulating capital. And there's better ways to do that than home ownership. And so I think that we've sacrificed real wealth for home ownership. That's kind of the thesis of the research that I'm doing.
Well, you know what, man? Just again, from my limited experience, I've started businesses before, I've sold businesses, and the one thing that is absolutely true in Canada relative to our counterparts in the US is that there's no appetite to fund entrepreneurship here. There simply isn't. Like we have
Well, we
one
literally had
bank,
to create a bank to do
yeah,
it, the
BDC, right?
BDC.
And to me, that bank, like again, just from my experience with it, unless you're at the stage in business where you don't even need them, that's when they're willing to offer you money, right? That's when they're going to give you the loan. It's like, I don't need you at the point where I'm generating revenue and I'm self-sustained. I needed you in the beginning, and that doesn't exist here, which makes it very difficult. So unless you're putting together some sort of an app or something, that's when they'll fund you. But anyway, or AI, whatever is on trend, whichever way the wind's blowing that week. Um, but let me ask you, so this is off topic a little bit. Social media, man. So what I'm noticing, so social media engagement on real estate content in general, do you feel it has gone down with the market having slowed down, or do you feel it's still kind of stable?
Yeah.
Because from my perspective, just looking at I follow different groups and different things like that. Engagement is a lot lower. Pretty much, it's like very much in tune with pricing and activity in the market.
Yeah, I would agree. We see it on the podcast. I mean, we probably have the best like measure of that in a national level, which is, like so we have I don't know, between 1 and 200,000 downloads a month. And you can see like 5 to 10% ebbs and flows just based on when the markets and it kind of tracks market volume. Like if I were to, I bet you if I were to take market volume and run it beside our podcast downloads, they would probably be pretty reflective of one another. There would be some correlation there for sure. But yeah, like whenever the S&P is like ripping and there's so much attention on that, because like we run the Canadian Real Estate Investor podcast, so we're getting people pretty early in their like funnel of becoming a real estate investor. Those investor curious people who are still trying to decide like, are stocks right for me or should I invest in real estate? It's very easy to see them getting pulled to like the stock world or shitcoin or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. That makes total sense. Tell me,
Yeah.
sell me. Okay, so listen, AI buzzword. I know you just did a conference, AI and stuff. For the boomers like me, I'm boomer at heart. Like I don't understand
Yeah,
technology.
I can see your hair getting a little gray there.
Yeah, yeah, falling out, gray, and all that stuff, right? So for me, I know AI is gonna come take me. I'll be the first victim for sure. So at this point, and by the way, I am experimenting with ChatGPT and all that stuff. Like I understand where it's going, but from a real estate perspective, right? Like I know they're talking about AI agents and all this stuff, but from a real estate perspective, AI brokerage, ultimately for the layman person, even think of it from a seller, agent and seller. How is AI powered brokerage different, or what's the benefit to me?
So, yeah, I actually don't think you're at that much at risk of getting eliminated, to be honest. The agents whose primary job is things that ChatGPT can do, which is like gathering information, like doing like clerical and administrative tasks, booking showings, writing the offer, etc. Those are the agents who will get eliminated by AI. People like yourself, I think, are safer because you deliver a customer service and results and critical thinking, which AI just can't do as well yet as agents can. And so agents like yourself will survive longer than agents who are not like you, which is the majority of agents. The way that we make it better, the market better for both market participants and for realtors is by using AI to do the things that agents shouldn't be doing. So if you read like the Bible of getting to the next level in real estate, which is Gary Keller's The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, the book could have been 3 pages, which is hire an administrative assistant, have them do all of the tasks that you shouldn't be doing so that you can focus on two things. Number one is generating more leads, and number two is executing more deals. And so that's basically the top of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel, right? You initiate more relationships, bring people into your database or into your funnel, then somehow bring them through the funnel and get them out looking for a property or get them to list their property. That's executing a deal. You need to be really good at those two things to be successful. Everything else can be done by an administrative assistant. AI can do 80, if not 90% of the tasks that an administrative assistant would do for a realtor. So that includes booking showings, that includes setting up searches, that includes amending searches, um, you know, that includes following up, sending people market reports and stats, um, conducting needs analysis for buyers and sellers, doing comparative market analysis. Like we have a tool that does a better CMA than I do. We have a tool that does better market reports than I do. And these are things that like I'm probably a more at risk agent than you are because my what I'm good at is gathering information, and ChatGPT is far better at gathering information than I am. And so that's how we've built the AI based real estate brokerage, and where a lot of agents get it and want to get on board, and a lot of agents don't and don't see the value in it, and you can see their careers wither away as a result of their inability or unwillingness to accept that the world is changing.
You know what? The biggest thing I find right now in a market like this where COVID was crazy, but it was on an upward trajectory. So it was really difficult to screw up as a bad agent because the demand was going to paper over any mistake you made, right? But in a down market, completely different story. Like I mean, market down 6 months down the line or 3 months down the line, you're either firing the agent or you're selling for 10% less than what you could have gotten had you priced correctly. So I think the takeaway for me is the CMA. So if you're able to leverage AI for CMAs that are extremely accurate, and then you're able to sell that in a compelling way to a seller to understand, hey, here's your real downside if you're not buying into the current price or the value of your house. I think that's probably, to me, the most important thing you can be doing right now as an agent, because otherwise it's again, you're just signing up for a mess of a listing. And I've actually had to take over listings like this where agent does something, whether they weren't able to persuade the seller into what the reality was, or they mispriced it from the beginning, and then downhill everything goes, right? And then you take it over, you have the conversation that they don't want to have, but at that point you either take the listing because they're listening, or you walk away because why are you going to spend money marketing and wasting time on something that's just not going to sell? And the end result, even if it sells, everybody's going to be disgruntled. Seller's going to be pissed off. They're just going to be just a bad mix
Yeah,
altogether.
100%, man. I mean, I've got a handful of sellers in that position right now where it's like, you try and set the expectation, but you are chasing the market down, and it is very difficult to price things properly. Um, yeah, it's not an easy market. This is a market where you have to be good at what you do.
So okay, that's it. Valerie is coming for us. I guess so. You guys are the House Sigma, the AI powered House Sigma. Is that what we're calling it? What are we calling it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a decent comparison. From a brokerage perspective, I think we give our agents more freedom to personally brand and run their own systems compared to House Sigma, at least from what I've heard. I'm not a House Sigma agent, so I can't really make that comparison from personal experience. But House Sigma is an interesting comparison because, the reason House Sigma and Zolo have done so well is because people don't want to enter into a high pressure sales environment just to look at houses.
Yeah.
And so they've made the ability to browse real estate listings really user friendly. And AI just takes that a step further because you can actually ask it questions and it can go fetch data as if it's the realtor, but it has no pressure. It's not trying to close you. So I think that where House Sigma takes somebody as far as like getting their House Sigma estimate or seeing what something previously sold for, and you can kind of click around. Like their interface is obviously really good. And if you're a seller, you can kind of do your own home evaluation. Like it gets you, I don't know, let's say 60% of the way. People want to try and pushing that further and further. And the reason they want to do that is because number one, they don't want to be sold something. But number two is because they actually don't really see the value of a realtor if they can do the research themselves. And they eventually are going to ask for that gap back in fee compression. And that's
Okay.
where technology and innovation, you always like, any good economist will tell you that innovation is deflationary, right? As it gets greater efficiencies in professions like real estate, as an example, it deflates what those people can charge. And I think that AI is going to do that in the real estate profession at a massive scale.
Okay. Well, that's quite the hot take. And yeah, I mean, the fee compression argument's been around for a while, and I think that's where things are headed. The one thing I will say about House Sigma, I think and again, I don't know anybody at House Sigma, but it seems to me, so for example, for those that don't know, we have Broker Bay, which is the internal analytics platform we have on the back end as realtors, where we can see showings, offers, what's happening live, right? The platform is a bit clunky, but it's the best we have, and it's not available to the public. But I think where House Sigma and where Valerie could really shine is if House Sigma packaged just their user information on an hour by hour basis. I think it would be incredible to see just how user behavior changes like in real time as it comes
Yeah.
to real estate. Because obviously that is not data you can see anywhere. Broker Bay tries to do it, but it's delayed by a week.
That demand side data. But to me, I agree with you. Like if you could track sentiment data, it would be incredibly powerful, right? It kind of goes back to that conversation you were saying about like, does the listeners on our podcast or on your YouTube channel seem to track like interest or volume in the real estate market? It would be amazing to be forward looking on that. Like Jason Billingsley, who's a good buddy of mine, amazing guy on Twitter, super sharp, and one of the founders of Zolo, who recently got sold to Questrade.
Oh wow, that's an interesting
Yeah,
move.
yeah, huge. Well, I mean, makes sense, right? Because Questrade, the biggest reason people take money out of their TFSA is to buy a house, right? So
Hmm.
you get them right at the source and say, oh,
Wow,
this
that's
might
an
be a good deal.
interesting vertical integration right there. That's actually a crazy move if it
Same
works, if
thing
they
as to
can.
as to why like RBC bought Ojo Home, right? Houseful. You should get into
I
talk actually from Houseful on the show. Um, Brilliant in the real estate space. But yeah, anyway, like I mean, the demand side data would be an incredible piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, because just like the stock market, man, everything is vibes based or sentiment
Order
based.
flow, man. That's why you can use Questrade now for free, and why you could always use Robinhood for free because they have hedge funds that are willing to sell your data or pay a lot of money for order flow data, right?
Huh.
They can see demand, they can front run trades. Like, oh, retail's
That's
doing this.
amazing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Dude, you're a champ, man. Listen, thanks a lot for making the time. And
Did you
I'm
see I
here.
wore my dinner jacket at the beginning?
Oh, did you? I didn't even
Yeah, yeah, I have
with the
it.
Bradford jacket.
It's Keswick,
Oh
man.
yeah, well, listen, I want the one with the vest with the highlights, the construction one.
Oh,
Listen, you
the
inspired
high
me.
vis. That could be the Bradford one, I guess.
Yeah, that's the Brad. Listen, I'm sold on that. I have one in my car. I'm
Look at
driving
this. It's
around in a
branded too.
microwave. Yeah. Oh yeah. There we go, dude. I'm gonna need one of
I
these,
got
man.
one for you.
Perfect. Coming out of a microwave wearing one of those. At least you come out of a vehicle that's fitting for this thing, right? I don't, but that's why I like to keep everybody like you know what I mean on their toes. You come out at a yard, and it's like, what's this guy coming out of a microwave wearing this type of
Yeah,
thing? But
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what you
yeah.
got to
Is
keep
that
them
what
on
they're
their
calling
toes.
the Teslas now? The microwave?
I don't know. I call it a micro. Listen, I'm actually installing a 2-inch receiver and a hitch in my Tesla. I think I'll be the first. You're gonna see.
I
You're gonna
saw
see
a,
it.
Cybertruck pulling it was a light utility trailer, but like I don't know if I mean, I wonder how far you'd really get with my dump trailer behind a Tesla, to be honest. I mean, you're not going to get it on your Tesla, but like on a Cybertruck or something,
I
like
know.
where
Listen, empty. I'll give it a show. So the Model S is rated for 200-pound tongue weight and like 2,000 pounds like load. But anyway, I think an empty dump trailer, at least move it around to a site, and then you just have to get somebody else to come grab it.
Yeah. There you go.
You
I
know,
mean, I
there's
would get
always
it
a
there. Eh?
solution. Yeah, if I
Yeah,
get
it's
it
true.
there.
Yeah. You just carry batteries in the trailer on the way and
There
charge
you
off
go, man.
them or whatever.
I'm always down to try things, man. People don't understand. We're gonna make it happen. We're gonna
I
make it
like the
happen.
Tesla because it's got the full self-driving, right? Like this is one of the biggest things I think about. Like when I think about when we go back to the AI thing, and I know you've already tried to kick me off the show, so I'll I'll wrap up here.
No,
But you
no, if
know,
it's cars, we can do another one right now. I'm ready to go
yeah,
for another
fair
hour.
enough.
Clear the schedule.
Um, the the self-driving to me is like the task that you can't get an admin assistant to do is to drive you places, right? So that you can work. But like one of the tasks that realtors do so much of is driving. And
Yeah.
if you could buy back that time, like you can make calls or whatever, but it's not the same, right?
No.
If you could be like in a mobile office, like if they get that Tesla cab going in the GTA, it'd be an absolute game changer. I like as it stands right now, usually like if it costs me less than $100 an hour to get somewhere, I will get a driver to take me there so that I can work because that's what I value my time at. I don't know, I'm not like the guy at the beginning of the episode hauling concrete buckets for 150 an hour, right? He's probably
That's
worth
only
more
when we
than
need
that.
therapy. That's when we're looking for therapy, just to disconnect. You
Yeah.
gotta haul a bucket once in a while.
I do, man. I do. I try my best to average an hour of manual labor a day, to be honest with you, just to keep
Dude,
myself sane.
same.
Just to
You
keep myself
have to,
sane.
man. You have to. But just one thing on the Tesla though. You know what? Before I bought it, autopilot, all this stuff. Here's the part I didn't know. So the self-driving is fantastic. Once you're on the highway, especially on the highway, pop it on and like you're good to go. But here's what happens. Here's what Tesla doesn't tell you. I learned the hard way. If you want to use the autopilot on the highway, you cannot do anything else. So you can't look at your phone because what they've done is they've installed a camera
Yeah.
inside
Tracks
the
your eyes,
car.
right?
Right, so you can wear sunglasses, all this stuff, but here's what happens. I already got one warning. So if you get like five warnings, they disconnect it, period. So you're not allowed to basically
Forever.
do I don't know forever, but it's like at least a month. Like you are
Hmm.
not getting access. Maybe you have to like do something, but it says you're going to be banned. So yeah, like it's the one thing I use it for a lot is if I'm driving and I feel like I'm tired, it's actually
Hmm.
just nice to turn it on. Like you're still paying attention, but at least your mind just kind
Hmm.
of rests.
Well, it'd be
So
good for like ripping calls. Like I do like a lot
all
of
the
my cold
time.
calling while I'm driving, and like my truck has adaptive cruise, but my 1500 had Super Cruise, which is like the same as Tesla,
Yeah, the
and
Super
it
Cruise,
had the
everybody
same
says it's
thing.
amazing.
It is
Yeah,
really good, yeah. Like, like all I need to be able to do is hit the call button in my CRM. Like that's it really. And then maybe like be able to type a note in, right? Like it's not
yeah,
like I'm not trying to like watch Harry Potter like that guy who died under the freaking thing, right? Like I want to like just be able to have like I'll still drive, but have a little bit of work.
yeah. Oh, the calls, it's yeah, that's all we can do. But this is why I got the microwave, man, because it's my car before, I was spending eight, 900, $1,000 a month in gas, and now I spend $80 in electricity to drive the same
Per
equivalent
month?
distance. Yeah. So I used to spend with my SUV before premium gas, all that stuff, eight to 900 bucks a month in gas. Because
So you're probably netting out in the tax deduction if you can still tax deduct it at 70 cents a kilometer.
ultimately $80 versus 800. That's it. And
Right.
then there's no maintenance, right? There's no maintenance. There's no brakes
Mhm.
because the brakes you never use. It's one pedal driving. They're there. They'll rust out probably before I need to replace anything.
The
And
problem
listen,
is like you can't do any like you can't go to any like lefty events because people will set your car on fire, right?
well, the good thing is I think that's dying down, right? I think
Right.
that the heat was on. The heat was on, but I think people don't care. Look, where I live, I think every third car is a Tesla, and
Yeah, there's
everybody's
so
doing
many
it.
Teslas on the road in Canada, man.
Yeah, everybody's doing it because it's just cheap transportation.
Yeah.
So, I'm all for it. I don't necessarily like the car that much, to be honest with you. This
No.
is more purely financial than it is
The
anything
only
else.
one I like is the S. Like it's a sexy sedan, but like
And that's why I had to get it because
that's what
I'm
you
not
got?
gonna.
Oh yeah, you're
Yeah,
good
yeah,
then. That's fine.
yeah. I can't look
I thought
like
you
I
got the
can't.
whale SUV or whatever.
No, no, no. That's man. It's all blacked out. It looks proper.
Oh,
Like
sick.
I need to. But that's why you're gonna see it pulling a dump trailer somewhere in
I
Newmarket.
can't
Come,
wait, buddy. Send me a
yeah.
picture. Come,
And it's gonna.
you can borrow my dump trailer for as long as you need, as long as you hook it up to that car.
I'm
It's
serious. I
truck
have the
nowadays.
hitch. I have the hitch and everything. It's an invisible hitch too, so you won't know it. I gotta remove a piece of
You'll
the
have to get the
bumper.
riser on the hitch though, because it'll
Yes.
be so low, right?
Yeah. Already have it. I'm ready to go,
Buddy,
man.
let's do
200.
it,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. You're gonna see crazy pulls, hypercar pulls in a test. I'm gonna be smashing everyone. Hopefully I
Buddy.
can
Well, the
stop.
torque, you'll get it up to speed fast, but the problem is you won't go very far.
Yeah. And it has air, so it will always adjust the rear so that it's flat, so it doesn't look like I'm squatting. It's
Right.
beautiful. It was a tow car, man. It was made for this. When the guys see me at the not the Keswick dump, what's
You're
the
gonna go
one? Mount
so viral,
Albert?
man.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
We got to
That's the
take
goal. I'm
some
gonna
videos of this.
all right, man. Thank you.